This segment of the Chopin podcast is brought to you by the Chopin Foundation of the United States, presenters of the National Chopin Competition in Miami, Florida, January 2025. Chopin's affection for bel canto opera composers like Rossini or Bellini is well established, and Chopin's nocturnes can be understood as an extension of that Italian school of singing to the world of instrumental music. Now, this past summer, I visited Garrick Ohlsson at his home in San Francisco to film him demonstrating many of the techniques that Chopin innovated and championed at the keyboard, resulting in a YouTube video called 16 Ways Chopin Transformed Piano Playing. Well, actually, Garrick and I recorded 5 more ways Chopin changed piano playing, but I haven't aired those scenes publicly until now. They all involve techniques Chopin borrowed from the opera world, and in each case, Garrick will announce the technique before giving examples from different Chopin nocturnes.
The third finger is the great singer. Chopin's own fingering in a couple of places is a little bit unorthodox. He uses sometimes the third finger on successive notes of a melody, which means, of course, you can't stick them together in a fingered legato, and you need the pedal and you need some weight. But also, what he's doing is emulating the singing effects that he admired so much in Bel Canto Italian opera, where sometimes a singer will darken the tone or sing separate syllables on different words rather than making them smooth, to give it an eloquence or a darkness or an extra accent. And he thought the third finger was a great singer because it has a natural power to be plangent and still flexible in the wrist. So, there, of course, you can make any of your fingers do that if you work at it, but the third just comes by it so naturally. And you can see this in the G minor nocturne, Opus 37, number 1, and the legendarily famous Opus 48, number 1 nocturne in C minor. Portamento. Portamento, what does that mean? In Italian, it means to carry things. So you're on one pitch and you want to get to the next pitch. So you carry the pitch down. Singers do this all the time. It's called sliding. Ba. That's a heavy slide. We don't always like a heavy slide. Sometimes it's good. Violinists can do it. Cellists can do it. But pianists can't. We have to play all the notes in between, so that sometimes it'll sound a little bit notey. If you want to go from this note to the next. But if you do it very softly with the pedal down and you make the effect. It sounds like a sigh, or you've carried the voice down. This brings up the whole question of singing. Every piano teacher tells their students to sing on the piano, but, singing and singing. What kind of singing and how? Chopin adored the bel canto of Italian opera and tried to emulate it. In other words, he tried to make it sound as if these melodies are like what singers sing in an aria or in an opera over a beautiful flowing accompaniment. And what's also an interesting paradox is that if you try singing some of Chopin's melodies, or most of them are pretty unsingable. A few are okay, but they still sound like operatic melodies. I mean, he doesn't actually give you the melody, he gives you the inner emotional feeling of the melody, which is a particular stroke of genius of his, and he was much emulated by composers after him. The excerpt that would be very famous for this would be the Nocturne in F sharp, Opus 15, number 2, which has 2 very famous sighing slides. Dramatic recitative. Chopin occasionally used dramatic recitative, which he also got from Italian bel canto opera of the period. In other words, the emotion becomes so great you no longer sing, you break into speech or a speech song, where you don't sing smoothly and you actually say things. But of course, Chopin's recitatives don't have words in them. The most dramatic recitative in the solo works is in the B major Nocturne, Opus 32, number 1. Shimmering trill lines. Chopin, as I said, was obsessed with the idea of singing on the piano. Now, the piano is a very frustrating instrument because it only has 3 elements of its sound. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and an end. And the middle is always a decrescendo. The piano can't get louder once the tone has been struck. So sometimes I think in his frustration, he tried to make it shimmer or make the tones last longer. And in imitation of what singers can do with their vibrato. He heard the legendary Swedish nightingale, Jenny Lind, who took Europe by storm, and he admired many of the great singers he heard both in Warsaw and Paris. In the Opus 62, number 1 Nocturne in B major, he actually writes a shimmering series of trills, which is absolutely ravishing, but it's the melody only slowed down. Or maybe it's a hyper vibrato, so instead of singing bom, 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 it was ah, just something to give you the idea of a singer, that tremulous quality of the vibrato in the voice. Operatic duet. Yes, Chopin did love his opera, and he knew that sometimes you have 2 singers singing at the same time. Yes, this operatic duet is very prominent in the codas of both nocturnes of Opus 27, the C sharp minor and the D flat major.